Alice stirred from sleep as something soft and warm pressed against her cheek. Her eyes fluttered open to find two luminescent amber orbs staring down at her, accompanied by a plaintive whimper that tugged at her heart. "Don't leave again, please." The words came not from a voice, but directly into her mind. A telepathic whisper from the small, fox-like creature perched on her chest. Its iridescent fur shimmered in the dim light of her quarters aboard the research vessel Wanderer's Hope. Alice sat up carefully, cradling the cub against her. "Zara, I told you I have to go. It's my job." The Lunari cub, no bigger than a house cat, buried her face in Alice's shoulder. The telepathic bond they shared flooded with images. Alice departing in a shuttle, the waiting, the fear, the loneliness. 3 rotations. 3 rotations that felt like an eternity to a species that bonded as deeply as the Lunari did. "I always come back," Alice whispered, stroking the soft fur between Zara's oversized ears. The past 6 months had been the most extraordinary of Alice's life. When the Wanderer's Hope had arrived at Lunara 7, they'd expected to find simple fauna on the forest moon. Instead, they discovered the Lunari, a sentient species in their early developmental stages, telepathic but pre-technological, living in harmony with their world's ancient groves. And then the creche had come. Alice closed her eyes against the memory. The creche Dominion didn't recognize sentience in species that hadn't achieved spaceflight. To them, Lunara 7 was just another resource-rich moon, ripe for strip mining. The fact that it was inhabited by intelligent beings was inconsequential, but not to humanity. Mateo had been the first to suggest it during that emergency meeting in the observation deck. "We can't just leave them," he'd said, his dark eyes blazing with conviction. "The Galactic Council won't intervene. They never do for pre-space civilizations, but we're not bound by their rules." "We're one research vessel," Captain Okonkwo had replied grimly. "Against a creche mining fleet. Then we level the playing field." That had been Mateo's specialty: tactical analysis, creative solutions to impossible problems. Within hours, he'd outlined a plan that was either brilliant or suicidal, possibly both. Now, 3 months later, Alice prepared for what might be their final gambit. "Is it time?" Mateo's voice came from the doorway. He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, but his expression softened when he saw Zara clinging to Alice. "Another hour," Alice replied. "I was just trying to explain to Zara why I have to go again." Mateo crossed the room and knelt beside them. Zara's ears perked up, and she sent him an image: Mateo and Alice standing together, safe, whole. Then the image shattered into fragments of fear. "Hey, little one," Mateo said gently, reaching out to scratch under her chin. "We've gotten pretty good at this, haven't we? 3 supply depot raids, 2 communication relay sabotages, and we got Ambassador Krell to accidentally discover evidence of Lunari sentience." "The creche commander isn't backing down," Alice reminded him. "Not until the council makes an official ruling. And that could take years. Which is why tonight we make sure he has no choice." The plan was audacious in its simplicity. The creche mining operation relied on a central processing platform in high orbit. Mateo had discovered that its shielding had one microscopic flaw: a vulnerability in the power coupling that could be exploited if someone got close enough. Close enough meant inside the shield perimeter. Inside meant a one-way trip unless the saboteur could reach the emergency escape pods before the platform's reactor went critical. "I should be the one to go," Mateo said for the 100th time. "Your piloting scores are terrible," Alice countered, also for the 100th time. "I can navigate the debris field. You can't." It was an old argument, one they'd had repeatedly over the past week, but they both knew Alice was right. She'd logged more flight hours in hostile environments than anyone else on the crew. Zara's telepathic presence pressed against both their minds, a wordless plea, a desperate hope that somehow they'd both stay. "I made her a promise," Alice said softly. "When I found her in that burned grove, when her parents had been killed by Kresh mining drones, I promised her that humans don't abandon those who need us." Mateo's jaw tightened. "And I made you a promise, that I'd keep you safe." "Then keep it by making sure this works." The hour passed too quickly. In the hangar bay, their modified shuttle waited, weapons systems stripped away, replaced with every stealth modification Mateo could engineer. It would get her close. The rest was up to her skill and more luck than she cared to think about. Zara rode on Alice's shoulder as she did her pre-flight check, tiny claws gripping her flight suit. The cub had grown in the months since the creche arrived, but she still seemed impossibly small and fragile. As Alice prepared to board, Zara's telepathic voice filled her mind one last time. Not words, but pure emotion, love, trust, and an image of Alice returning, whole and triumphant, to a Lunara 7 free from the shadow of the creche. "I'll do everything I can to make that real," Alice whispered. Mateo caught her hand as she turned toward the shuttle. "When you get back, and you will get back, we need to talk." "About what?" He smiled, sad and hopeful at once. "About why I've been terrible company for the past 6 months. About why watching you risk your life makes me want to do something incredibly stupid like tell you I'm in love with you." Alice's breath caught. Before she could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. "They've detected our position," Mateo said, checking his datapad. "You need to go now." Alice squeezed his hand once, then climbed into the shuttle. As the hangar depressurized, she looked back to see Mateo standing with Zara in his arms, the small Lunari's eyes glowing in the darkness. The shuttle launched into the black, and Alice smiled grimly. Humanity had a saying the Galactic Council had never quite understood. We don't leave our friends behind. Tonight she'd prove it, or die trying.